You. Good evening, good evening, good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Deborah Jenkins, your host for Black Talk Platform. I am so happy to have you all here with me again. I know it's warm outside, and so you might be tempted to not join us this evening, but you do not want to miss the show that I have lined up for us tonight. It is educational, and I think it will help us to grow because my special guest is one I've been trying to connect with and bring on my show for some time now. Not even the show. The show is only a year old, but I've been trying to connect with Dr. Carl Mack because this man right here has a plethora of information and he freely shares it for those who are willing to receive it. And I have been one of those sponges in his social media life, and I am just thrilled to have him join me tonight. We're shifting gears from all of the justicey type of programming that I've been bringing to you, because I think it's so important that when we are even engaging in our justice fights, that we have enough correct information to pursue justice in the right way. And so Dr. Mack is going to help us to understand many things tonight. But one of the things and one of the reasons I brought him on is because I guess at the end of 2020, and he can definitely correct me, he announced that he had compiled this excellent resource called the Black Heritage Day for, if you can see it, hopefully everyone can see it, perpetual calendar, which is a comprehensive calendar with names in Black history that you and I may have never heard before, also including some of those names that we are very familiar with. I'm a deep diver, so I'm happy to be introduced to other names that I've never known before. One name in particular that I saw a few days ago actually. Let me see if I can find him. I didn't bookmark him, but I want to show you the depth of the work that Dr. Mack has done, because it's important to me, and I hope it's also important to you. One of the other reasons why I brought him on and asked him to be a guest tonight is because we are approaching another milestone in Black history here in the United States, and many people will be organizing celebrations, commemorations, programs around Juneteenth. I happened to hear Dr. Mack on another interview some months ago, and he shed light in a different way on Juneteenth. And so, what he's going to do tonight is to further educate us around Juneteenth. But I also wanted to tell you how I got to know him, but all the things I want him to share what he feels comfortable with sharing for all of us so that we can all know the gem that we have in him in our community. Dr. Mack, welcome to Black Talk Platform. Thank you, and it's my honor to have you here.
Dr. Jenkins, thank you so much for the invite. A pleasure, my sister.
Absolutely. So we've known each other a little bit in social media for many years, for several years. I don't know about many. My son was preparing to graduate from high school, and one of my cousins had been one of your mentees, because you, by profession, and correct me when I have your bio wrong, are an engineer. And I don't, you tell me, but she connected us because she knew her baby cousin was getting ready to go to school. I connected with you some kind of way, and I've just been following you and your information for years. Tell us what you want us to know about Dr. Carl Mack, because to me, you are like a walking library in and of yourself. Share with us.
So, first of all, I'm my mama's baby, right? And I'm one of three boys, and unfortunately, my two brothers, Bug and Goldfish. Bug was my oldest brother. Goldfish was my youngest brother. Both of them are no longer with us, so it's just me and my mama. From Mississippi originally, so I went to Mississippi State. My mama told me, baby, you need to go into engineering. So I studied engineering, became a mechanical engineer, and when I graduated in '86. Late '86, early '87, I headed to Seattle because of this girl I was chasing. So I went up to Seattle and started an 18-year career as an engineer in Seattle, and very much got involved in the community, became involved with the NAACP in Seattle, Seattle King County NAACP, and ultimately became the president of the Seattle King County branch of the NAACP. And the NAACP in Seattle is the oldest branch of the NAACP west of the Mississippi River.
Wow.
And so my branch, the branch that I was leading, won the Class 1A Thalheimer Award. And so the late Julian Bond actually flew to Seattle to present us at our 91st anniversary with the award recognizing us as the best NAACP branch in the country. And we were a very, very active branch. So I don't know what it's like, with NAACP branches around the country, but, for the time that I was involved, I mean, you turn on the news every other day, we were dealing with some case. That's how active we were. And so in 2005, one of my former students, who was also an engineer, but he was involved in the National Society of Black Engineers. He was a student leader. And he went back to the organization and said, look, the mission statement. So the mission statement of the National Society of Black Engineers, or NSBE, is to increase the number of socially conscious or culturally conscious Black engineers who excel academically, succeed professionally, and positively impact the community. And so from a culturally responsible standpoint, he was like, Brother Mack is one of the most culturally responsible Black engineers I ever met. So they invited me to speak at the conference. And then based on the body of work that I had accomplished, they came after me and said, look, would you apply to become the executive director? So in 2005, I left Seattle. And when I left Seattle, both the county government and the city of Seattle named a day in my honor because of the type of impact that we had as members of the NAACP. And then when I got to NSBE, we grew the organization in 4 years, I helped grow the organization from 12,000 to almost 36,000. Started some of the largest engineering camps in the country, specifically for Black children. So I'm saying to you that my engineering camps, we had in one camp, we would have 300 children for 3 weeks. And those 300 children would be taught by 50 Black engineering students from around the country. And that 3-week camp, that was free. It was free. So anybody, the only thing that a parent had to do was show up to our orientation. And ultimately, I put those camps in 10 different cities. So I had them in DC, Brooklyn, Detroit, Philadelphia, Jackson, Mississippi, Houston, Denver, San Diego, and Oakland. And so we had them all around the country. Each camp probably cost about $200,000. I got our corporate sponsors to pay for it. And in DC, I had 2 camps in DC. So I had 700 Black children in the camp. I'm sorry, the other city was Jackson, Mississippi. So I took the camp to my hometown. And in Jackson, that camp in Jackson was all Black girls. So it was the largest engineering camp in the history of America for Black girls. There were over 360 little Black girls learning engineering, doing everything from making their own perfume to understanding the principles of engineering, be it what a hypothesis is, what kinetic energy is, potential energy, just all the terms of engineering. So it was a phenomenal run. And then basically in 2013, I retired. And so I've been retired ever since.
I think that was one of the conversations we had early on, because you were also sharing a lot of information about the market. And before so much changed, I think you were going to come and teach a small group for me. You're very generous with your time, but it was your activism in Seattle that really, I feel, solidified our social media connection. And we have Dr. Laverne Hall here tonight watching and saying hello to both of us, because there were some issues out there, and you don't live out there anymore, but you're still highly respected in Seattle. And you went to their aid. And so to hear you talk about the all-girls camp in Jackson, it shows that you're not only committed to excellence and achievement for Blacks in general, but you are committed to the liberation of Black women where injustice befalls us. Talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Well, let me say this. So anybody who is familiar with Seattle, Dr. Laverne Hall.
I love her.
Because when you think about Mount Zion, there were 2 names at Mount Zion that came to mind for me. Reverend Samuel McKinney, who was a classmate of Dr. King, and Laverne Hall, Reverend Hall. And so for me, I remember when I did my first Black History calendar. And, usually when you come to a city, if you don't know people, you almost kind of have to kiss the ring for people to give you any time. And Reverend Hall was anything but like that with me. I mean, she was just motherly. She was encouraging. She was supportive. She's always been that way, a very calm voice. And so when I heard, and this is many years after Reverend McKinney had passed.
Yeah.
And so now this new leadership at Mount Zion Baptist Church, arguably one of the most iconic Black churches in the state of Washington, when that leadership was talking about kicking Reverend Hall out of the church,
Crazy.
like you done lost your ever loving mind. And what absolutely bothered me is that with all the Black folk in Seattle, especially Black men, not one of you brothers would stand up for these. It was four sisters, all sisters that these fools were trying to kick out of the church. I ain't going up in there, all godlike, I'm going in there singing, swinging a sword.
Right.
And to understand what those sisters were going through, when they was, it was no choice, but I'm getting on the plane. Even my boys was like, Dad, you got to go up there. But on top of that is Reverend Hall, it was two of the sisters were Reverend Hall and Reverend Saunders. And then one of the sisters was the daughter of Reverend McKinney. And then the other fourth sister she was the daughter of the oldest living deacon at the church. Now, what in the world could you be doing to these saintly sisters to say that we're going to kick you out of the church? It flies in the face of everything that is God-like. I might be a Sunday school dropout, but I ain't that stupid. And so, I don't care nobody else. And then when I got to Seattle, there were people who knew I was coming, showed up at the press conference like, Carl, please, you don't need to do this. I don't need to do what?
Wow.
Look, I don't owe you no favors. I don't owe nobody nothing. You back up off these sisters and do the right thing, and we ain't got no problem. But I don't negotiate with foolishness. That ain't what we're doing. And to think that you messing with Reverend Hall, Reverend Saunders,
wow,
Sister McKinney, come on. We're not gonna play them games. Ain't no politics going on here. Do the right thing, and I get on the plane and go home. You don't, and we're gonna handle this business. I was always like that in Seattle. But again, to think that you want to mess with these particular sisters, you got my full undivided attention for that.
I applaud you for doing that, for caring enough, for having to people. He had to leave his home to go back to Seattle, Washington, because there was no one else willing to stand up for these leading ladies of ministry.
Absolutely.
And so I applaud you. I always applaud you for that, but also for connecting me with Dr. Hall. She has become one of my mentors. And you know what? In the church, we say all things happen for a reason. What she's been doing since that is incredible, mind-blowing, and just regenerative in terms of her great work. So I appreciate you for intervening for them, but also introducing me to.
But Mr. Jenkins, let me say this. There's a lot of folks out there that have no idea who I am. You don't know who Reverend Hall is. You have met Reverend Hall.
Yeah.
And I'm just telling you, that kindred spirit that you have with her now, she was like that with everybody. So the idea that a church was going to kick her out over the foolishness that they were doing, I'm just telling you, whether you know or not know, if those of you who don't know me, but you know Sister Jenkins, if Sister Jenkins is down with Reverend Hall, I'm just telling you, that's the spirit of Reverend Hall. Yeah. So
yeah, man.
I didn't have much of a choice. You messing with that sister.
Right.
Got my attention.
I'm so happy. And it's good to know that there are men like you who are willing to go that extra mile. And Dr. Hall, I hope you're smiling as we talk about you, because we have great things to say about you. But let me tell you what she said about her grandson in your calendar. She's saying that her 12-year-old grandson has the calendar. Let me flash it again for everybody, because at the end, we're going to tell you all how you can purchase it from Dr. Mack. And every week he calls to give her a fact from the calendar. I love it. I love it. And that's what we want our young people doing, right? We don't want them to have these. It's on my desk. I clean my desk off and it's right here. I'm flipping it every day because most of us are using our, she says she's still smiling, Dr. Mack. We're still using our telephone calendars, but listen, if you want to know who we are, and where the stock that we come from, you need to get this. And he's going to get into it a little bit more now. So I want to talk a little bit about the calendar before you give us a wonderful lesson, if that's okay with you, Dr. Mack.
Sure.
Okay. Yes. Reverend Barbara Ellerby is also saying how grateful she is to you because we both met Dr. Hall through your work. And so you have absolutely no idea, Dr. Mack, your impact. So thank you, sir. Thank you.
I promise you, certain things I could take credit for, but the beauty that is Dr. Reverend Laverne Hall, that is her. I can introduce her to everybody. You know, I don't need to give me credit. She is just a beautiful, beautiful sister, which is why it was so easy to say I'll go to war for her. You know, believe that.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. So I wanted to ask Dr. Hall, Dr. Mack. We've talked you up into the show, Dr. Hall. Can you? So this is the 4th edition, everyone. Mm-hmm. That means what? 1, 2, and 3 preceded this one.
Right.
I'm sad because I don't have access to 1, 2, and 3. None of us do, I don't believe, right, Dr. Mack? None of us have access to.
No.
Okay.
So what happened is, so I used to, when I worked at Metro, there was a white guy that I worked with named Henry Cody, and Cody was a history major before he became an engineer. So one day he came to work. And there was an article in the New York Times, I believe, about Henry O. Flipper. And he was talking to me about Henry O. Flipper. And I'm looking at him. He's looking at me like, of course I know about this man. And I'm looking at him like, I don't have a clue who you're talking about. And for those who don't know, Henry O. Flipper became the first African-American to graduate from the West Point Military Academy, which was the first engineering school in this country. Wow. And so as a result of that conversation, I'm realizing that this white guy knows more about my history than I do. And I felt ashamed. And so I remember driving back to the office for lunch. It was August 16, 1990. And God placed in my mind to do a Black History calendar that literally every day of the year, it would feature somebody out of Black history. Now, I had no idea about Black history. I didn't know where to start. So God told me to talk to 2 people. He told me to talk to a guy named Tony Morris and talk to a guy named Marvin Moore. Now, I was cool with them, but it ain't like we were road dogs, you know what I mean? We ran together all the time. So when I went to Tony Morris, Tony told me, hey, Carl, if you wanted some information, we should call the Schoenberg. And I'm like, the what bird? Mm-hmm. You should call the Schoenberg. Now, I had no idea that Schoenberg is a public library in New York, which serves as the largest single repository of Black history information, arguably in the world. Mm-hmm. And at the time, so I didn't know where to go. So we called up the Schoenberg. Schoenberg gave me some books to start with. And that's kind of how it started. Then when I went to Marvin said, you know, I told Marvin, you know, how I wanted the page to look. You know, I wanted the page to have the person, a picture of the person, their title, and then all this information about them, and then we'll have a date, right? So Marvin said, have you heard of this software called PageMaker? I didn't know what PageMaker was. So in God's infinite wisdom, one guy told me how to get the information. The other guy gave me the technology to put it all together. And so I just started working on it. Both of them dropped out of the project. When I finished with it, you know, man, I was like 2.5 years, every day, every night. That's all I did was work on this project. And when I got ready to get it printed, it cost $25,000. Well, I didn't have $25,000, but leading up to that, God gave me 5 credit cards. I went to the bank, pushed all 5 credit cards under there, took out $5,000 advances on all of them, gave them to the printer. He got the calendar. And then from there, the calendar appeared in a paper in Seattle, in the Seattle Times. And my phone was just ringing. I only had one line, you know, can you hold? You know? And then the next thing you know, Gannett News Services that owns USA Today and 80 other newspapers across the country, they saw the calendar. All of a sudden, articles running all across the country. So every day I would come home, is just a stack of orders. And I'm talking old school people where I was going in, opening the mail, take the check out, fill out the, put their calendars in the package and mail them off. And that's the way it happened then. But it was something that God said to me then that I never forgot. He said, Carl, it's going to be years later before this thing really takes off. Well, let me tell you what happened. That was 1992, right? When I did the first calendar. Today, right before I got on this program with Sister Jenkins, I was on a call with some folks out of Australia. The people I was on a call with is Google. I don't know if you can read that.
Can y'all see that?
No,
I don't think they can really see it, Dr. Mack.
It's okay.
Do you see that? It says it's a content license agreement between right. Dr. Mack and Google.
So what Google said was, your Black History 4 calendar is so unique and it's so incredible. We want to license the content for a whole year. So I just got off the phone with them, and it was, so we've signed a contract. And the uniqueness of this calendar versus my other one. So here's Black Heritage Day 3, and here's number 4. Let me get those in there,
okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. So I don't have any more copies of 3. I don't have any copies of 2. I don't have any copies of 1. I sold out of all of them. But the uniqueness of Black Heritage Day 4 is that every entry is on a day significant to that day. So let me give you this as an example. So many of you who are in the religious community, if you go to church services on New Year's Eve, you know that service is called Watch Night. Well, the reason it's called Watch Night is because on December 31st, 1862, our ancestors heard that Lincoln was talking about signing the Emancipation Proclamation, and they could not believe it. So they stayed in churches all over the country. They stayed up all night, quote unquote, watching for freedom, watching to see if on January 1st, 1863, Abraham Lincoln would indeed issue the Emancipation Proclamation. That was the first observance of what we now know as Watch Night. So on December 31st in the calendar, I have the history of Watch Night. So as an example. But
that's incredible, because I don't think I knew that. I'm looking at it. Like, for instance, I found the one that I wanted to share with everyone. Can I share it, Dr. Mack?
Please.
I want them all to get it. So I'm not sharing everything because I really want you all to purchase it.
66 days. Just share it. We can share all kind of stuff with them.
And you've already shared a whole lot. I'm telling you, he's a wealth of information and he's sharing stuff. But if you all missed what he shared before, I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to rewatch this. But this is May 8th, right? Can you all see that? That's May 8th.
Yeah. Henry McNeil Turner.
Henry McNeil Turner. So I'm going to tell you all, I had Dr. Mack's calendar. We were trying to get him on my show in February, but most of you who've been following me, you know that I had a tragic loss in February, my mother. And so he was supposed to come on 2 days after my mom passed. And so I left it in the packaging. And so when I started going through it and got myself right on my desk and everything, when I hit Henry McNeil Turner's page, I realized that I just heard about him in the Black Church series that was airing on PBS. But guess who put it together before Dr. Henry Louis Gates? Dr. Carl Mack. He put Dr. McNeil Turner in this perpetual calendar for us. And I was first of all, I was really, really enriched by the presentation of Reverend McNeil in those series. But if you all want to know a little bit more about Reverend McNeil, you all really have to get his calendar. You can certainly Google it, but Google is going to be having what Dr. Mack has already compiled for the next year. So I suggest you get the real deal so that you won't have to search all over Google. You'll be able to just use the calendar. But Dr. Mack, I love you sharing how committed you were and how the brothers helped you pull it together and how you listened to the voice of God and knew that the first one, the second one, the third one wouldn't necessarily be the splash. It was the fourth one. the fourth one, and this is what's taking you worldwide, right? And so we're very proud of you. We're happy to even be on the show today as you're getting your news. But one of the things that I really want to get into, and I don't want to take us too far off of where I asked you to prepare, but I think this will lead right into that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So next month is June, the month of June, and Juneteenth is another day that more recently, I'll say, our community, the Black community, has made commemorative. There have been many within the Black community for years who have been commemorating it, but it's more of a national type Black celebration now, and even the White Houses have recognized its importance in our history. I happened to listen to you being interviewed, and I believe I'm not really sure. I think it was in Seattle. I'm not really sure, but you were being interviewed on a news program, and you talked about Juneteenth. So, for the audience, and if you're out there, if you don't mind putting a comment, tell me what your thoughts about Juneteenth are, because I listened to Dr. Mack then, and I'm going to tell you what my idea of Juneteenth is. Juneteenth is the commemoration of what I've been taught is the commemoration of the last of our ancestors enslaved here in the United States to receive their emancipation. And it was beyond the time that the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed. Is that what everyone who's out there listening to us tonight, is that generally what you thought? If you can just drop a comment, yes, or Y for yes, or something like that. Dr. Mack, how far off am I, and perhaps others, from fully understanding Juneteenth?
180 degrees.
Oh my goodness, that's too far. That's too far.
Yeah.
Why is that? Tell us. Come on, teach us. Yes.
Good. So
I see.
Let me share the screen,
sure.
And I want to take you to so that we can all see this.
Okay.
All right.
It's class, y'all.
All right, here we go. So,
bring it up.
Okay, can you see that?
I can. Let me bring it on. Okay.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. So let me do this. Okay. I want to go here. I want to start with this. I want to start with this particular slide. So the first Blacks that came to America came to Jamestown, Virginia. And so I was invited to Virginia by some Army generals for a totally different reason, but because they knew how much I appreciated history, they invited me to this placard that marked the place where the first Africans came to America. Now, these placards are put up by the Department of Historic Resources. Now, you think about that, family. That means that in this country, there's a department that understands the history of America, right? But now, while you're thinking about that, I'll need you to ask yourself, throughout your academic life, your academic training, where did you ever sit down and truly study about the African American experience? Rarely did we do it. So you see this yellow bar at the bottom? Mm-hmm. Look at the line next to it. It says the U.S. abolished slavery in 1863. Now, that statement implies that slavery ended when Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. Nothing can be further from the truth. So when I'm sitting there talking to these generals, look at my face. I'm looking at them. I'm saying, man, what's wrong with y'all? This ain't true. Now, I know that these brothers didn't put the plaque up, but I had to tell them this placard is wrong. So as soon as I get back, I call the Department of Historic Resources and I tell them, you got this wrong. Sure enough, they go through it and they do their research. And look down here at that last sentence. It says the United States abolished slavery in 1865. Now, how does that apply to Juneteenth? So here's the problem, is that when you take a look at Juneteenth, and I'll just go with the state of Washington, but this is a typical example of what you said that, you know, your understanding of
Yeah.
Juneteenth was and everybody else's. It says Juneteenth, and this is the AP, this is Associated Press. Juneteenth, the holiday commemorating the end of slavery in the United States. That's what it says. Most of us have been taught that Juneteenth, those blacks in Galveston, Texas, were the last black folks to get word. They were the last blacks enslaved. And so now I just got an understanding that the state of Washington became the 47th state to recognize Juneteenth. Now, this is the other thing I want you to pay attention to. And so, and I'm gonna open this. I want to open this. I want to open this link, and I want you to. It's two things I want you to see when I open this. Right now, can you see my screen, Sister Jenkins? And
I can see.
And does it say does it show you the House bill from the state of Washington? Is it showing?
No.
What is it showing?
It's still showing where you can click on that for the state of Washington.
Okay, all right. Then let me move out of that. I want to stop sharing and I want to go back in,
okay,
because I want you to see this particular legislation in the state of Washington. I need you to see that.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, are you able to see the state of Washington right now?
No, we can't see your screen. We can't see your screen.
Okay. All right. All right.
Wait, go put it back up, and I'll bring it back on because I had us in full view.
All right. So the thing that I want you to understand is that the legislation from the state of Washington. Okay. Let me go to share screen here. Let me see if I can get us back up, because I want you to see exactly what that says. No. Okay, here we go. Okay, can you see that? Where it says House Bill 1016?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you go and look at House Bill 1016, I want you to pay attention to this. Look at what this says. This says the legislature intends to designate Juneteenth as a state legal holiday to celebrate the end of chattel slavery. Now, if you go over to, now I'm at the Congress. I am showing you the 105th Congress. So there was a United States Senator from the state of Mississippi named Trent Lott. Trent Lott said, a joint resolution commemorating Juneteenth, Independence Day, June 19th, 1865, the day on which slavery finally came to an end. Wow. Now, family, you are sitting there, you're looking at that screen right now. I'm going to show you something. You see me typing in 13th Amendment, okay? Mm-hmm. The 13th Amendment. This is the amendment that ended slavery, right? This is the amendment that ended slavery. The 13th Amendment ended slavery. Better yet, I want to take you. I'm going to take you back to my page now, so that you can see, because I have everything there that I want you to take a look at.
Okay.
I got everything I want you to take a look at. Okay. All right, family, you're looking at this now. Okay. Now, family, the 13th Amendment, and this is in the calendar, the 13th Amendment was ratified on December 6th, 1865. That's what officially ended slavery, not Juneteenth. And it had nothing to do with the Emancipation Proclamation, because understand, family, the Emancipation Proclamation is an executive order. It's not, an executive order only applies to federal employees. That's who it applies to. So what Lincoln knew is that in order to make slavery illegal, we must pass an amendment. But now let's go back to the Emancipation Proclamation. What exactly did it say? So the Emancipation Proclamation said this. You see these states in blue? These are the Union states. The states in gray, these are the Confederate states. So what Lincoln said in the Emancipation Proclamation is this: the states in rebellion against the Union, and there were 11 Confederate states that rebelled against the Union. So in the Emancipation Proclamation, Lincoln listed 10 of those states. The only state that he didn't mention was Tennessee. The reason he didn't mention Tennessee is because the Union already had control over Tennessee. So what Lincoln said is that for those enslaved in those states in rebellion against the Union, you're hereby free. Now, you're going back and you're saying our ancestors in Galveston were the last ones to get the information. Trust and believe that if on January 1st, 1863, the very day that Lincoln said you're free, if they had known that day, what were they going to do? Just walk off the plantation and say we're free? Understand this. Those 11 states seceded from the Union for one reason and one reason only: over the issue of slavery. Now, I need you to understand something. You're in New York. Let's say that the governor of New Jersey passes a law that tells the people in New York, you got to send 1% of your income to New Jersey. The people of New York are like, man, what's wrong with you? You ain't got no jurisdiction in New York. That was the same thing with those 11 states. When they left the Union, do you understand that they formed what they believed to be their own nation?
Mm-hmm.
They ratified a constitution. They elected a president. They elected a vice president. They elected a Congress. So when Lincoln said, y'all free, that nation was like, man, y'all done lost your mind. I don't care what you say. It means nothing to us. But then here's the other thing that Lincoln said in the Emancipation Proclamation. He said, now those slave states that did not rebel against the Union, slavery is still legal there. So that meant Missouri, slavery is still legal. Kentucky, slavery is still legal. Now,
Hmm.
West Virginia, there was no West Virginia, because when Virginia seceded from the Union, the counties in West Virginia said, look, we are pro-slavery, but we are not about secession from the Union. So we don't want to secede from the Union. So they said, we are going to apply for statehood. So West Virginia applied for statehood. They
Hmm.
became a state during the Civil War, but they never seceded from the Union. Maryland, the state that I'm in, never seceded from the Union, but it was a slave state. Delaware never seceded from the Union, but it was a slave state. So for
Hmm.
all of those 4 states, now 5 states, slavery was still legal. Now, let's go back and take a look at these dates. The Civil War starts on April 12th, 1861. On January 1st, 1863, Lincoln issues the Emancipation Proclamation. On June 20th, 1863, West Virginia becomes a state. While the Civil War is fighting, Maryland, the state that I'm in, says, okay, all right, man, this war's been over slavery. We need to end slavery. So Maryland as a state abolished slavery. On January 11th, 1865, Missouri as a state abolished slavery. West Virginia abolished slavery. The Civil War ends on April 9th, 1865. After the Civil War ends, Granger now goes to Galveston, Texas. He finds our ancestors still enslaved. He issues General Order Number 3, and he says, hey, you all are now free. Okay, so we are now believing those were the last blacks enslaved. But family, go back. I want you to remember this. Missouri, slave state. Kentucky, slave state. West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, all slave states. Kentucky and Delaware never stopped practicing slavery. They never stopped. So inside of Kentucky and Delaware, there were 225,000 Black people still enslaved after June 19th, 1865. So here's the way it went down. You got to remember, go back to your civics class. In order for a proposal to become an amendment, you need 2 things. You need 2/3 of the Congress to approve the proposal. And then if that happens, they send it out to the states. And then the states 3/4 of the states must ratify it. So on January 31st, 1865, 2/3 of the Congress approved of the proposal to end slavery. On April 9th, 1865, the Civil War ends. June 19th, 1865, Granger goes in and finds that even though the Civil War is over, Black folks are still enslaved in Texas. So he issues General Order Number 3. But after that, remember what Lincoln said in the Emancipation Proclamation. In Delaware, Kentucky, Missouri, Delaware, Kentucky, Missouri, Maryland, and West Virginia, slavery is still legal. So even though the other 3 states got rid of it, in Kentucky and Delaware, they kept slavery going. The only way that slavery ended in this country was on December 6th, 1865, when Georgia became the 27th state. 3/4 of 36 is 27. You needed 27 states to ratify the amendment. Georgia became the 27th state to do it. So I need you to understand, when you learn that Juneteenth, they were the last Blacks enslaved. No, family.
Wow.
And let me show you what 225,000 looked like from our history. I want you to go back to August 28th, 1963. There was an event called the March on Washington. They said that anywhere between 200 and 300,000 Black folks showed up at that event. That's a picture of 225,000 Black folks in that picture right there. That's what it looks like after Juneteenth. So the question becomes, Carl, how do we have this wrong? It's simple, family. How did the people have the plaque wrong? How did they have that plaque wrong? Because our history is trivialized. How did we get it wrong? When have we sat down and put scholarship to our experience in this country? What school did you go to that you learned Black history? I bet you I can ask you when it's Independence Day in this country, and everybody will tell me July 4th.
Right.
I can ask every Black person what was so special about 9/11, and every Black person gonna tell me about 9/11. You ask people about Pearl Harbor Day, they know it. And America will not let you choose any other date but that. If I tell you, Dr. Jenkins, we're going to celebrate your birthday, and I choose any other day other than your birthday, you're going to say, "Ho, Dr. Mack, wait a minute. That's not my birthday."
Right.
But these states have all said that June 19th ended slavery in this country, and those Black people were the last Black folks enslaved. Why did they do it, and how is it that they gotten away with it? Because we so freaking ignorant about our history, and we won't put the scholarship in. And then now some of you are going to be like, "Carl, why don't you calm down? At least we got something." See, that's your problem, family. You're always willing to accept crumbs when you deserve the whole freaking factory.
That's right. That's right.
You can't go in there and tell Jewish people any other day other than Passover is Passover.
Right.
But let's just give Black folks anything we want, any old thing we want.
Right.
No, it don't work like that. Now, in case you think I'm kidding you about Kentucky, I'm gonna stop sharing this for a minute.
Okay.
I want you to. I'm gonna pull something up, and I want you to see exactly what Kentucky said about this. As soon as it comes up, and it is up. All right, now let me go back, and I do want you to see this, Doc, because it is amazing. Okay.
Okay. I hope y'all hanging in there while this is like, oh my goodness, mind blowing revelation, everybody.
Yeah.
And you can just follow the dots if you don't believe him. He's done the work for us. So okay. I'm floored.
Do you see what's on the screen now? Chapter 48. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this chapter 48, family, look at this last line. The governor of Kentucky shall proclaim June 19th each year as Juneteenth National Freedom Day. This is from the state of Kentucky. You got me?
Yep.
So this is the legislation that Kentucky put forth when they wanted to recognize Juneteenth. But I want us to go back and I want us to look at what they said. Look at this. Can you read that for me, Doc?
Yep. The Civil War ended April 1865.
Now, here's the important part. Read this, Doc.
But bondage did not end for approximately 225,000 Kentucky slaves until the 13th Amendment was ratified December 18th, 1865.
Now, read this right here. Go ahead.
Whereas Juneteenth or June 19, 1865 is considered the
Stop,
date.
stop right there. It
Okay.
is what? It is what?
Considered the date
When the
when the
what?
last slaves in America were forced by General
Freed.
no were freed by General Gordon Granger, who arrived in Galveston, Texas, and issued General Order Number 3 almost 2.5 years after President Lincoln had issued the Emancipation Proclamation.
But listen at what it said, family. They said, they tell you the truth. They said, whereas Juneteenth is considered the date,
Considered.
but they know it ain't the actual date because they told you right here. Bondage did not end for approximately 225,000 of our ancestors. Now, even though they said December 18th, they're wrong. The date was December 6th. That was the date that the 13th Amendment was ratified. But you know what? I'm not trying to play semantics with you, family. This is what I'm saying to you. I'm simply saying to you, did Black Lives Matter, did Black Lives Matter, did that just start? See, I want to believe that from the day we got here, I put it this way. They asked Harriet Tubman, well, sister, you free. Why you keep going back? And that sister paraphrased and said, how can I be free when my folks are still enslaved? How can I be free? How can I celebrate freedom when my people are still enslaved?
Right.
See, Black lives have always mattered.
Yeah.
See, this all happened, and this really generated when George Floyd was murdered. White folks felt a sense of guilt. They wanted to do something. And then now you got miseducated Black folks who didn't know a whole lot about our history. Let's make the holiday.
Yeah.
Listen, I ain't got no problem with Juneteenth, but I do have a problem with Black folk, white folks, and anybody else saying that Juneteenth represents the last Black that was enslaved in this country. You just saw in the Kentucky proposal, there were 225,000 of our ancestors still enslaved 6 months after Juneteenth. So if you want to do it right, family, do it right. I had a professor by the name of Dr. Edward Jones, who has since passed. And Dr. Jones told me, he said, Carl, let me tell you something. The reason history is important is this reason. He who defines rules, history sets the definition. And if you allow somebody to define you, they will rule you. Well, see this, I am not going to allow uneducated Black folks to define our history as Juneteenth being the end of slavery, which is what they did in the state of Washington, is what they did in the only county in this country. And the folks in the state of Washington, it was a Black woman named Melanie Morgan. And I tried to reach out to the sister. So I don't want you to think, Carl, why you got to be tearing the sister down? Because I tried to reach out to her. Her pride. And you know what the book says about pride? Pride cometh before the fall. Seek the truth, and the truth will set you free. But when I tried to tell her, they don't want to listen. Nobody wants to listen. They want to ignore me, put their head in the sand. Dow Constantine, he's the county executive for the only county in the nation named after Martin Luther King, King County. I tried to reach out to him. He sent a Black woman to me who is over diversity and inclusion. She tells me, well, Dr. Mack, I know that what you're saying is right, but this is hard to fix. You take a pen, you strike out June 19th, and you put the truth. The truth is never hard. They trying to tell me, well, this is political. And I got a whole lot of Black folks that I tried to reach out to. But because I'm not there, they think they safe. Oh, well, we have to deal with this. There go Carl kicking up muss. No, I'm not kicking up fuss. If any of you listening to this, If you want to believe, and see, this is the thing about history. It is a truism of history that people react on what they think happened rather than what actually happened. See, we want to get upset when the legislatures in Tennessee want to say that the Three-Fifths Compromise was really trying to end slavery and not taking us as Black folks out of the human equation and recognizing us as chattel property. When they lied about it, we wanted to get upset. But you think it's okay if through our ignorance, because we don't know our history, we don't put the scholarship down, that now we want to discount 225,000 Black folks by saying, let's recognize Juneteenth because it sounds sexy, June and 19 Juneteenth. Okay, I ain't got no problem with Juneteenth, but I got a problem with every one of you who want to say that Juneteenth recognize that was the end of slavery. It wasn't the end of slavery. 225,000 of our ancestors did not taste freedom until the 13th Amendment, December 6th. That is my problem.
Wow.
But those people in Texas and anywhere else, if you want to celebrate Juneteenth, by all means do it. But do not do it under the miseducation and the misrepresentation that Juneteenth represented the end of slavery in America. That is an abomination, and it is wrong.
Woo! Well, look, I'm smiling, but you don't know. I have tears in my eyes, and those of you who know me very well, you know I'm very passionate about all things having to do with Blackness. And look, I like to consider myself a well-informed person, but you saw how I defined it as many of us define Juneteenth and its place in our history. But let me tell you something. I agree with Dr. Mack. That's why that's one of the reasons why I like following you, because time you jump up in the timeline, it's not just going to be anything frivolous. You are seeking to teach those of us who follow you. And I truly appreciate it. You don't have to clean up the language. I mean, I don't want YouTube to shut us down, right? But you don't have to do that for me, because I think we need to wake up. And Juneteenth has become just like Dr. King's celebration, his birthday celebration. It's light fare for people. It's just to say that we've done it. And oftentimes, and I'm be real honest, and I know I'm going to upset some people, for churches, it's just another fundraiser, to have something that's public and you take up an offering. We have to care about the 225,000.
Yes.
I mean, reading that that amendment, what was it called, Dr. Mack? Is it their constitutional amendment, or what was it?
No, that was the
Kentucky.
That was the actual legislation from the state of Kentucky. And let me pull it up again so that folks can sit there and they can see this. And let me know.
Let me see
it there?
Hold on, I got to bring it in.
Is that on the screen for you? Let me know if it's on the screen for you. You see it?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So again, an act related to establishing Juneteenth, National Freedom Day in Kentucky.
HB 42.
So even though, look at this. See, this same, even up here, look at what it says here, sister. Whereas most citizens believe that the issuing of the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863 legally ended slavery. However, the proclamation only applied to states which had seceded from the Union, and Kentucky, it did not apply to Kentucky. They tell you right there. Do you see that?
Yes.
See that? Then they come right here. Whereas the Civil War ended in April of 1865. Read that, sister. I want to hear your voice read this.
Yeah. Whereas the Civil War ended April 1865, but bondage did not end for approximately 225,000 Kentucky slaves until the 13th Amendment was ratified. And we now know it's not December 18th, 1865, but it's December 6th, 1865.
There you go. There you go.
Incredible.
And so all I'm saying to you, family, I want everybody to understand this. I ain't mad at you. I am absolutely passionate about our history. And when you think about, let me just take you back to February. See, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, when he started Black History Month, Dr. Woodson wasn't asking white folks to embrace this. He didn't care.
Yeah.
He didn't care if nobody. But what he was asking is, he says, I am going to choose the second week in February in honor of two men, Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. Lincoln, who was born on February 12th, and Douglas, who was born on February 14th. Although Douglas didn't know the exact date of his birthday, but when he was a child, his mother used to call him My Little Valentine. So Frederick Douglass chose February 14th as his birthday. Good enough for Frederick Douglass, good enough for Dr. Woodson, good enough for me. So he chose that second week in February. And he says, I want to choose this time for Black folks to just sit down and give our experience some scholarship. So we had to sit down and do that. And that's what I've been doing. I'm an engineer by education. I studied Black history just out of passion. And the light bulbs open up. That's why when it comes to Reverend Hall, when I understand the number of Black folks who have fought and died for us, there was no way I'm leaving my sisters in the wind like that. I'm not having it.
Yeah.
Just like I wasn't leaving her and them four sisters in the wind, I'm not leaving them 225,000 out there either. I ain't leaving them. And if Black folks like Melanie Morgan in the state of Washington, if they want to keep that party going, I'm coming to get you educationally. One day, history is going to show you was on the wrong side of it. And when somebody tried to correct it, and see the reason why Black folks, it's some Black folks in Microsoft. I did this presentation in Microsoft, and I talked about the misrepresentation of Juneteenth. There was this Black guy who was over the Juneteenth of Microsoft, was furious at my presentation, because now he got to go back to Massa, and Massa gonna say, wait a minute, I thought you said these were the last Blacks enslaved. You don't know see, he's got to deal with that embarrassment. As Black folks, we should not be embarrassed that we did not know our history. White America has kept that away from us.
Yeah.
But see, there's a difference between ignorance and stupid. I embrace my ignorance, not because I want to be. I just don't know everything. I'm cool with that. So I'm not embarrassed about ignorance. But what you ought to, because ignorance means you don't know. But what you ought to be embarrassed about is stupid. See, stupid is when you know better and you still do wrong. That is what you ought to be embarrassed about. See, now that we're teaching you that Juneteenth was not the end of slavery, those weren't the last Blacks enslaved. If you go out there and teach other Black folks and teach our children that, I want to be unequivocally clear with you. You are stupid.
Yeah.
You deserve our wrath, because it's not true. If you didn't know, I didn't know. At one time, I believe, just like Dr. Jenkins, I didn't know. I get that. That's ignorant. We don't know.
Right.
But that's why I'm trying to teach now. And I'm doing it for the same reason that I went to try to help Reverend Hall. I can't leave. I'm doing it in the same spirit of Harriet Tubman. We got to go back. Black Lives Matter today. Black Lives Matter yesterday.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. This has been so enriching, Dr. Mack. I so totally appreciate you. Reverend Barbara Ellerby is asking, may she follow you? He's probably at the max, but definitely try. He's saying thumbs up. You're not at the max? Okay.
No.
But
I don't know nothing about it. If she says we friends, we gonna be friends. Believe that.
That's awesome. Go find him on Facebook. I think I tagged him in a couple of the posts. But listen, Dr. Mack, can you tell us how we can purchase the calendar? I'm gonna scroll it across here.
Well, that's okay. I'm finna show you. So
okay.
So can you see the calendar on the page?
Yeah.
You see that?
Yes, sir.
Who do you see?
We see George Floyd. Wow.
Okay, so the reason I have George Floyd is because that was the day that George Floyd was murdered, right?
Yes.
So I have him on May 25th, right? And so I want you to see, this is the other thing I want people to understand. I want you to understand this about the calendar. So inside this calendar, there are 4 pages of table of contents, right? So this is the first page of table of contents. So anybody you're looking for, you got them. 9/11, all the way down to the D, Sammy Davis Jr. Then you come back and don't worry about the order. This is the second page of the table of contents, the Declaration of Independence. Now you're probably thinking, what did the Declaration of Independence have to do with Black folks? Well, because there was an amendment a piece of the Declaration of Independence that they took out about slavery. It's called the omitted passage. I want to show you about that. But then here's another page. Then here's the third page of the table of contents, right? All right. The order of retaliation. Believe it or not, Lincoln actually passed a law that says if you want to kill every Black soldier that fights in the Civil War and you want to be cruel about it, we'll kill white soldiers out of retaliation. It was an amazing piece of legislation.
Wow.
And then, I do a page here where you see on September 19th, I talk about the N word, why we shouldn't use the N word. I go all in on that page. Okay. And then here is the last page of the table of contents. And then we start off in the calendar on January 1st, and I'll just show you this Heartbreak Day. This was considered the most dreaded day of the year for Black folks because this was the day that the slave owners took our enslaved ancestors and they separated the families. They separated children from their parents. They separated siblings from each other, separated spouses. And on that day, hearts were broken. So on this day, I call it Heartbreak Day. But if you want a copy of the calendar, go to BlackHeritageDays.com. And inside the calendar, sister, I have a page in there that gives that website that people can go to. I want to see if I can find it down here before we leave up out of here.
Okay, no.
So BlackHeritageDays.com will tell you, that'll give you the calendar, and it's that simple. So it's or you Google Karl Mack.
I see it.
You got it.
I'm gonna put it up now because I want it to be immortalized here so that people can purchase it.
Yeah, for those of you, I want you to remember this too. The calendar is perpetual. So there is no Monday, there is no year to it. The calendar is perpetual. So you can use it year in and year out. The cost of the calendar is $20 or $19.99, free shipping. And people like, Karl, why would you? It's so inexpensive because, there needed to be a balance between education and business. And so for me, God has blessed me financially. And so Dr. Jenkins and I was talking about it. I would tell you right now, I've been retired for 8 years and I want to thank Facebook for that.
I tell you, yeah.
We can talk about investments, on another show.
We're gonna do it, Dr. Mack. It's been I can't even remember how long it's been. Listen, everybody, I'm scrolling. The bottom has the order information for your copy and gift copies. And when I say gift copies, he had people like buying like 30 copies, 50 copies for whole classes. This information, just this lesson that he gifted us with tonight, is worth it for all of us to get one of these calendars and pass it on. Dr. Mack, do we have your permission to do our own lessons?
Yes.
Fashioned off the one you just gave us tonight.
Yes. Anything
giving you full credit.
You don't need my permission to teach Black folks about Black folks. Not from my work. You don't have that any way you want to. And, and there is so much, inside of Black history. I do a presentation on 40 Acres and a Mule. I do a presentation on reparations. There's a whole bunch of, pieces to it. So, if you want to call back in and we do something else, I'm more than amenable to it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm so grateful to you for providing this platform to talk about, this is why our history is important, because if we don't know it, other folks will define it. And it could be an embarrassment to us. And, I get what people are trying to do with Juneteenth. If you want to recognize the end of slavery, then recognize the end of slavery. That was December 6th. Yeah. Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Imagine if everyone who's watching and you and everyone on our social medias were just given this information, the eyes that would be open, the ignorance that would fall away, and the empowerment that would soon come after it. I'm just so gratified by you being here tonight and thankful for you agreeing with very short notice, Dr. Mack. We appreciate you. We want you back as soon as we can pull you back in. Um, we just pray God's richest blessings over you. And Dr. Hall and I both know that you will soon be back at 18 holes.
On the
That's
golf course.
Look, you follow him and y'all will see what we're talking about. But Dr. Mack, wait for me after I end the show, please, and so that I can say a proper good night to you. But for everyone else who is watching tonight, I want to say thank you all for being with us. Oh, Danielle, so good to see you as well. Um, Thank you all. This was so good for me. Okay, this was such a great show for me because I need to have a balance between all the justice work. But this is also justice work, right? This is justice work because we have been yet again told a lie and we've bought the lie. So now, those of us who've heard tonight, we have a responsibility to ourselves, to our family, to our friends, to the community to set the record straight. We've been armed. Listen, get a copy of Dr. Mack's calendar. It is way less expensive than the information that he has compiled deserves, but get it before he buys into that and changes the price, right? Black Talk will be on hiatus for 2 weeks because I'm trying to do the month of June as Juneteenth amplifying month shows. Now look at that. Now I have some new information. I'm about to bust some bubbles because I've been given correct information, but we'll be back on June 8th and throughout the month of June to amplify this. But there will never again from me be any amplification of Juneteenth without setting the record straight and including December 6th, 1865, recognizing our 225,000 25,000 ancestors who remained in slavery in the state of Kentucky.
And
Listen, everybody. And Delaware. Now Delaware, ooh, I think we need to have a whole show on Delaware, but that's okay. We can't do it tonight, but everybody come back again in 2 weeks. You know, I'll be sending out the reminders. God bless you. God bless you, Dr. Mack, and thank you so much. Good night, everybody.